Hi everyone, my name is Malavika Rajkumar. I am the content lead of Nyaya. Today, as part of our Nyaya Speaks campaign, we are having Pallavi Parikh from Ungender, and she's joined right now. I'll just add her.
Hi, Malvika.
Hi Pallavi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How
Yeah.
are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I guess we're all a little content tired, I would say, staying at home. But thank you again for taking out time for this.
No, there's always time for this. Recently, I was just telling somebody that even if you wake me up in the middle of the night and you tell me that let's talk about Posh, let's talk about inclusion, let's talk about workplaces, I'll wake up and I'll start talking. I mean, this is almost like breathing now.
Because we're really excited to have you as part of our campaign. So, Nyaya is conducting a Nyaya Speaks campaign on World Equality, Women's Equality Day to highlight how equality actually plays out in different professions and different spaces.
Mhm.
So, particularly, we have you on board, and I just like to give a little intro on the work done by you and Ungender. So, for all those who are listening, Pallavi is a social entrepreneur and a gender advocacy advocate. And it's great to be on call with another lawyer because
Oh, I'm
usually
not a
what.
lawyer. I'm not a
Oh, I'm
lawyer. Everyone
okay.
thinks I'm a lawyer because I've been in the legal field for so many years. And
Oh,
I teach to lawyers and I work a lot with the justice legal system, but I am not
okay.
a lawyer.
Okay, fine. I mean, I'm so extremely sorry for this. From the description, when I saw the word advocate, I assumed. But
Oh no.
anyways,
Oh, that must have been confusing. Yes,
yeah,
I
that.
agree.
Yeah. So anyway, coming back to the work done by you. So basically, she runs two organizations. One is Ungender, which is an organization that works to build inclusive workspaces, and the other one is Conduct, which is a tech company that is building India's inclusion index for enabling inclusionary laws, which will soon be data driven. If I'm
Yes.
explaining correctly. So, Pallavi, could you please give a small intro about yourself, excluding the advocate bit,
I will.
and work done by Ungender so that we can all understand how your organization has really helped build such inclusionary workspaces?
Sure. Thank you so much once again for hosting this, as well as having me here as part of this whole campaign series. As always, it's always amazing. I've personally, individually admired the work that Nyaya does for years now, and it's fabulous just to be here on the same platform. Thank you for doing everything that you guys do, all
Thank
of you do, and it's nice to be partner in this journey. And to share what we have been up to is a lot of things. If we have to go into the nuances of it, but I'll simplify it so that everyone can relate. Very simple. We have been talking about inclusion from so many angles, right? We're talking about it from the social spaces, civil spaces, online spaces, and education system, legal system, every place that we talk about, we have all been noticing for decades now that there's something is amiss. There's a very small fraction of the society which is representing every other person's perspective. I mean, to it gets as hilarious that when we talk about forums on urban development and planning, we actually do not see any members from the trans community there. We do not see any members who are from people with disability. And yet we are making plans for the future where, from an urban lens and from a development lens. This is problematic, right? And these are exactly the problems that Ungender has been working on. That how do you build inclusion in each and every aspect of our society? And the key key work area that we have identified as workplaces. If you can ensure economic stability and independence, economic participation, then rest, everyone will find their voice. We don't have to find voice for anybody. Anyway, we are nobody to be the voice of somebody else, right? But the minute a person is economically stable and independent, they will speak for themselves. So you just get them there. Now, there are a lot of hindrances that affect that participation, especially when we talk about workplaces. There are biases that affect this. There are stereotypes, age-old perceptions that are driven by what we see in movies, what we see in newspapers, what our families have been feeding us, what we see on the roads. And we've been carrying those misconceptions, and then we manifest the same in workplaces. Now, in your personal life, I'm not getting into anybody's personal home space, but when you bring those stereotypes at work, and they start affecting, be it for a woman, be it for a trans person, be it for a person with disability, that's when Ungender steps in. And we have taken a proactive approach about it. There's so many inclusion laws that are currently in the country. Our journey started with POSH Act, of course. That was the major driving force why Ungender was conceived and was brought to the picture. And we said that, okay, we will work with companies to help them understand what these laws are, what the larger intent is, how they should go about implementing them. So the advisory role is what we have taken. And at the education front, we make sure that when you know what your rights are and you start demanding, then on the other side, there's more pressure to become compliant. So that's what Ungender does. We have a wonderful, wonderful team that is working day in and day night to bring this awareness to everyone. And yes, that's in a nutshell.
That sounds really good. I guess the principles that Nyaya and Ungender share in terms of enabling people to understand their rights is very similar and a strong way forward in terms of any form of advocacy for that matter. And speaking of, you mentioned the work done regarding POSH and by your organization. So how important is a robust sexual harassment policy? Now, we all know it's important, but I'm asking this question also to highlight some of the misconceptions that are there, sometimes that women have, sometimes they are true. Like, for example, there may be certain detrimental effects to the ways workplaces respond to such policies. The more robust, maybe sometimes they might have hiring issues, transfer issues, etc., which will all affect women at the end of the day. So, keeping this in mind, what advice do you have for women and for companies?
You know, a few days ago, there was this very active conversation going around period leaves. And I'm sure that I hardly somebody who is not online and who is not aware that this conversation was happening. And one of the debate point was that it will create more discrimination and more disadvantage for women. I have said that then also, and I'm saying this today as well. Absence or presence of any such law is not going to increase the discrimination any further. Even if a company chooses today to not to have sexual harassment policy in place, are we saying that the women are not being discriminated against? Right? So that's as simple as it is, right? Now, two sections that you're talking about. One is for companies. Companies to think that if we don't have this policy in place and if we don't have compliance in place, then we don't have to worry about it. We are no longer responsible. What they fail to understand is that this is not just a policy. It's a policy which is an output or an extension of a legal requirement. You are more in trouble if you don't have a policy in place, because not only you're not respecting the legal mandate which has been given, not only you are not providing the safe space that you're required to give into your women stakeholders, but you're also in non-compliance with the law, and there are severe consequences that are associated with it, which companies do not understand even till today. Because I was talking to somebody and they said that, oh no, Pallavi, we have put this whole activity on hold. We'll take it up in the next quarter. The audacity with which a company gets to say this, I don't blame them anymore. Our monitoring system from the government side have to become more robust. The fear has to be there that if we are not complying, then there's somebody who will find out, and if they will find out, then there are consequences to it. That's one. How it helps a company is a different thing altogether. That if you do have the compliances in place, then it sets the ball rolling for everyone else to find a way, a standardized way of following this through. Now you know that if this problem happens, how exactly we should be addressing it. The law is giving you a set of guidelines. It's literally spoon feeding you, that what is it that you should be doing? How is it that you should be doing? There's somebody who has been disturbed. There's somebody who has been disrespected. There's somebody who has felt uncomfortable. Step by step, this is how you should be going about it. But that's not how they're looking at. But whichever company has adopted it, they have only been thankful about it, right? So it's a vaccination, Malvika. You will only appreciate, actually, you will never appreciate it. All the vaccines that we got as a child, I don't even think we appreciate them because we never got to see the consequences of not having it. And
I think for granted, you're right.
yeah, it's considered as an expense. It's like those annual diagnosis that we have to get done for ourselves. Like I'm 36, I'm turning 36 next month, and every year based on my age, range now, I'm required to do certain tests, and it's an expensive stuff, right? And every time the results are absolutely fine, I'm like, oh God, sab kuch to theek tha. Why did I spend this money? Right now, in order to make sure that everything is fine, this is an investment that you have to make. That is how companies need to look at. For women, it's a different thing altogether. We always tell women to actually ask this as a question when you're applying for a job. Ask companies, do you have such policies in place? And we have heard this from women that what if they use it against us, that we are being too demanding, that we are asking too many questions. So yes, here I will take a step back or a pause, and I'll say that this is a power which is limited to very few women. This is a privilege to be in a position to ask a company ki, oh, you want me as a talent. First, you tell me, what do you have for me? It's a privileged position. Let's start from that only. That it's very easy to say that go and ask the employer that you want to, that who wants to hire you, that do you have these things in place for me or not. So very few people will be able to access this. For those that are not in the position to access it, it's very difficult to tell them that don't join a company if they don't have this in place. I would ideally say don't do that. But I know that once again, everyone is struggling to make some ends meet. People are going through different phases in life, and if they need a job, they need a job. They're not going to look for these safeties and perks. There are some women who have spent 20, 30 years in an organization, suffering through so much stereotyping and discrimination only because there was no other way. So we have to recognize the privilege also here that women like maybe you and I have. I to tell a client that if you don't want to build a gender neutral policy, we don't want to work with you. Either you're building an inclusive place for all genders, otherwise you're just going to create further damage. So that's something also that you have arrived. It's a journey. But I'm very much cognizant of the different segments of diverse groups and the minorities and what privilege they have and what they don't have. And that's where we speak from every time we as ungenders speak anything.
Understood. So, especially one of the points that we keep highlighting from Nyaya is that one of the best ways to assert your right is to understand the simple fact that an organization having more than 10 employees, like definitely you can go up to the HR and just have a simple conversation. Where is the internal committee? It's it's something that you would definitely know if you would know the law. But again, you're right when it comes to the challenges that come across it, because many people, you're right in terms of privilege, because sometimes there may be a chance that you can even ask your HR this, because if you the provisions of local committees are also very negligible in India.
Where do you find? I mean, I have the database of all the local committees that exist in India right now, But I was recently like dialing those numbers and checking whether the numbers have changed, the addresses have changed. I'm filing a fresh, we at Anjan are filing a fresh round of RTIs to collect this information again to collect the district officer's information, because this is a practical challenge, right? When you tell somebody that, hey, go and ask the company's HR, where's your ICC, you're supposed to have. The next thing is, what if the HR says, but we will not do it? Do what you want to do. Okay, where will you go? Then the next step is you can go to the district officer. So when women come to us and they ask us this question, we want to be ready with that answer. So far we have been ready, but right now I'm realizing that information is actually now outdated. So now we need to update it also. But what if tomorrow you reach out to the district officer and that has happened, and the district officer says, but I didn't know that I was supposed to do this. What do you want me to do? So then the woman needs to educate the district officer also that, hey, you have the authority to write to that company and tell them that you should be putting all these things in order, right? Local complaints committees are like floating committees. There are very few committees, local committees in India, which right now have a stable office. One of the best and the most robust one is the one working in Gurgaon right now, right? And you can actually find them, you can locate them. They have a Facebook page and everything. I wish all the LCCs were like that.
Yeah, because if you Google for local committees, you don't really get it, even in your first page, like, which is very sad, because this is sexual harassment at the end of the day. Like, I mean, at least the internet is also not acknowledging this, which is lack of actual implementation on the ground that directly correlates to that.
But Malvika, there we are saying that internet is a person on its own. It's like saying society and the system. Internet gives us what has been fed to us. This information has not yet been fed to the system or Google yet. Google will only be able to find it for you if somewhere exists in its library. But this information doesn't exist only, right? So lots of practical loopholes are there, and that's where I would say the challenge, and that's where we also identify what are the gaps, right? So, for example, a couple of years ago, when we noticed that compliance is not being taken seriously, I, together with another person and through my foundation, we filed an RTI. We filed rounds of RTIs and collected that data, and then filed a PIL in the Supreme Court to actually, against all the state departments in this country of women and child development, to get them to enforce the implementation on ground. And it's been 3 years now, and we are still following it up. It's a long journey. But the system, you have to work on the system like that.
Yeah. I mean, especially keeping this in mind, what are the common problems that women actually face when they file a complaint with the internal committee, at least? Like, if you could mention a few instances and like what actually happens so that our users can actually understand better.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, what happens is if a woman wants to complain, very practical thing, she may not really know where to go and complain about it, right? So she will reach out to the immediate person. That immediate person will try and console, because everyone wants to be the best of the leader and is working in the benefit of the organization. So they may want to console, just like get that person to understand, pacify, counsel, whatever it is in their best interest that they want to do. Now the woman has already gone through one round, okay? Somehow she is not satisfied and she will reach out to the HR then. Now the HR may also try to do the same thing, because until 6 years ago, this is exactly what HR was supposed to be handling. So HR again gets into this active mode that, "Arey, ye to mera problem hai, mujhe solve karna hai," right? So the woman will go through that conversation also. Somewhere in between that, she may identify or she may realize through some people that there is an IC which is supposed to actually be taking care of this. Now she may be directed to the IC, right? She may ask the HR, and the HR then can say, now here's when it starts branching out, right? Then the HR can say that, no, we don't have an IC, so we will only handle it, right? That's where the first issue that we spoke about, how your journey, even to find justice, is first the journey towards installing the justice system in that company. So first you have to fight for the implementation in the organization to happen, which itself is a very tiring process. You keep writing letters. You first write to the HR an official letter so that you can document it. Then you write to the legal counsel if they have one, so that they can implement it. If they don't listen, then you give another notice and you write to the MD of the company or the chairperson, and it's up to them once again whether they will listen to it or not. So many things are happening, right? Yeah, ignore. I also read and I ignored. I mean, for all we know, this is like sexual harassment session, but sure. Yeah, Malvika, very cute bindi. Sure. And then what we are talking about is even after that, the system can still not be installed, right? And we are talking about not those aware and conscious companies who wake up and say, ki, oh, we were supposed to have something in place. We didn't do it, but we'll fix it. And here it is, right? Those are the good ones. If you come across that, then that's great. Your struggle has still created some output for you. So you're still like all buckled up and you're saying that, okay, now the system will take its course. If that doesn't happen, then it's a lost cause, because where do you go? The whole point of having this system, this law in place, was that a woman will not be keen on going to the police. The woman will not be keen on spending time taking routes, tours to the court. She will not have the financial means to fight this thing, because yes, we all know of pro bono lawyers, but how many good pro bono lawyers are out there? And it's very difficult to find them. Let's just start with that. It's very difficult to find them. So most of the time they give up and they say that, okay, we are going to like just give up. We're going to find some other company. Let's say if you do have a committee that you are able to reach to. After going through this whole thing, now you have to sit through that committee again and you have to do the whole process of telling them, this is what happened. Then they will tell you, oh, but we can't take verbal complaint. आप लिख कर दीजिए. तो अब आप उसको लिखने बैठेंगे, right? क्योंकि एडवांस में तो आपने उनको राइट्स बताए नहीं. Is it okay if I switch to Hindi and English both, just to make sure? Okay, great. एडवांस में तो आपने कभी किसी को राइट्स बताए नहीं, अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम्स में आपने इन्वेस्ट किया नहीं, क्योंकि अगर आपने किया होता तो वो जो that woman would have reached the ICC directly. So the very fact that she had to go through this whole juggle and hustle is because आपने अवेयरनेस में इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया. Now the ICC, जिन्होंने अवेयरनेस में इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया, उन्होंने ICC की ट्रेनिंग में भी इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया होगा. It's guaranteed, right? So that means it's an IC which is for namesake. There, I agree. Exactly. Likkar dena is actually the worst part, but it's also the crucial part. Now, if the IC is not trained, then they have no idea how to go about it. It is a legal proceeding. There is a step-by-step process how to go about it. You have to be fair. You have to be unbiased. You cannot be looking at the woman and judging. You cannot be making skeptic remarks. You cannot use a certain tone. And all these things go out of the toss, or go out of the window, because your IC is not trained. Your internal committee has no clue as to how to behave. आप रूम में घुसेंगे, वो आपको चाय और पॉपकॉर्न और चाय और बिस्किट खाते हुए मिलेंगे. That has been the experience that I have seen. Women coming and telling me that when we entered, they were screaming at us, they were shouting at us. There have been times when IC has actually landed in the middle of the night in front of a girls' hostel.
Wow, that's
right.
I've heard of this before.
Because they have no idea how to go about it, right? Or they have asked questions like, just give us your phone and we have the right to take your phone. No, you have the right to look for evidences. You have a lot of rights, but how to execute those rights, you have no clue at all. So what you're creating is you're creating further trauma for that person. And there have been enough judgments. I'm sure Nyaya is also following up on all the legal judgments which are, the legal updates which are coming up. We have seen enough and more updates and, judgments coming out from High Court where they have recognized that these verbal, altercations and this approach, this tone, this mannerism is all further contributing to the trauma of that person. Now, after this, with this kind of attitude, what kind of just investigation are we expecting? Right? Aapka basic is also not in place. So when we talk about the problems, if I have gone through something like this, Malvika, I don't care anymore. you know, I just want it to be over with, right? And uske baad, this is the same experience that I will be sharing further with other people. So tomorrow, if you tell me कि पल्लवी क्या हुआ था, I'll be like, I don't know यार, इस law का क्या importance है, मुझे तो कुछ feel नहीं हुआ, right?
Yeah,
And
I
then you will pass
would
it on to the next people, right? And that's when women think that going to the IC is a more traumatizing experience. Whereas the
Hmm.
intent of the law was to take away this whole trauma, to take
Hmm.
away this whole pain. And that all like just boils down to null, zero, nothing. This is just one of the example that I'm giving, right? But to get the whole character assassination done, I've seen like when women come to us and they say that our IC investigation was not done properly, and then we ask them that, okay, do you have any records of the meetings? Can you ask? ICs are not even keeping records of those conversations. So for this person, there is no way to prove that this is what happened. So first, you went through sexual harassment at workplace. Second, you went through such a traumatizing experience with the committee which was supposed to help you on this. And third, now you have no way to prove either the first trauma or the second trauma that you experienced. How do we expect women to have faith in this committee then? I mean, no wonder they don't want to complain, because we have such a shitty internal committee, system going on just because they're not trained. I've stopped blaming the committees because it's the duty of the company to train them. It's an investment that they have to make. Internal committee members do not get paid extra to do this job. So ठीक है, वो internal conscience है, वो लोग अपनी तरफ से we do these weekend Saturday learning sessions for IC members and POSH members. I see a lot of people there, and I love them because they're building their knowledge, and every person is like, we want to do better, we want to do better. And how many IC members are out there, Malvika, जो अपनी तरफ से इस job को सही तरीके से करना चाहते हैं? So
Yeah, and I noticed, so on our website, we have this Ask Nyaya feature where people can ask us legal questions. Now, we give legal advice, we give information on the law. So sometimes the questions can be a little subjective, and
yeah,
I see all this on the back end. One of the main recurring questions that keep coming for sexual harassment, and this is post investigation, is that getting the report. They're not getting to see what actually happened. And,
yeah,
legally speaking, it's the paper tiger here. Okay, we tell them, hey, this is a section you go to. You can demand, you can ask, assert
yeah,
your right.
yeah.
Practically, bias is your right. Like, it's very challenging to deal with such situations. So, taking forward on this point also, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are in a gender inclusive workspace. Now, I know you mentioned it before, but especially in context to sexual harassment at the workplace policies that are there, I would like to know your thoughts on this.
So it's very crucial that we today, we as a society are a product of 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We are a product of the past. Okay. Everything that we are right now. And because we are in the present, we have some control over how to design the future, right? Now, if we have to look at the workplaces, we have, as cis women, okay, and we have been fighting for an equal opportunity space. And I use this phrase very carefully because ये period leave के conversation ने मुझे सिखा दिया कि equality की बात करोगे तो लोग बोलेंगे कि हमको भी चाहिए, हमको भी चाहिए. So we are talking about equal opportunity space. ठीक है, you give equal opportunity. We have been fighting for this equal opportunity space for decades now, right? Now at this point in time, because we can empathize with what does it mean to go through this whole journey, right? पहले atrocity होगी, फिर atrocities को कोई document करेगा, फिर उसको validate करेंगे, फिर उसके लिए law बनेगा, फिर उसके लिए policies बनेंगी, फिर awareness create करेंगे, फिर systems होंगे. It's a never-ending journey. What we believe at Ungender is that when we have to talk about protecting an individual from any form of workplace sexual harassment, the roots are in the gender stereotypes that we carry. And the roots are in the perceptions that we have for each gender. The roots are in how we expect a certain gender to be, from their strengths, weaknesses, characteristic traits, and everything. And this has been fed to us, from different sources, like I said a while ago. So, if we are going to have these conversations with people in a room, if companies are going to invest all those, God bless all those companies if God exists, and if God doesn't exist, then whoever can bless those companies for being like that. But if they're going to take out time and they're going to take out, set aside some money to invest in this, then if I am to talk about biases and gender bias, why should I keep it limited to just women? Why should I not now introduce them? I will use this opportunity to talk about all genders out there, right? That this company, by the time we are done, by the time we're done with them, let's just put it like that, we are done and they're ready, for consumption. This company should be a workplace where a trans person should be able to walk in and feel that, oh, this is home. Home in the sense that this is where I belong. This is what I was looking for. This is where I feel that nobody cares about my gender, or even if somebody cares about my gender, certain thoughts have been put in place to make it home for me. That's the approach that we want, and we have been taking. That when you talk about gender inclusive, let's talk about what it means when we say that a man feels sexually harassed. It's so important to speak and to have this discussion. What makes a man feel sexually aroused? I'll give you one small example. In one of our conversations and in one of the companies that we work with, this complaint had come in that the man actually complained against two of his male colleagues of sexual harassment. Why? His wife has recently given birth, and they were teasing him that this must be the dry season for you because your wife has recently given birth. Such an intrusive conversation, such an intrusive comment. And absolutely, the law recognizes that as a woman, if somebody having this conversation with me, I have the right to go and file a complaint of sexual harassment at workplace. What we are saying when we work with companies is that we have to talk about specific examples when a man, a say straight man, a cis man, also feels sexually harassed. When a trans person feels sexually harassed, it may not be the same thing, or it may be some things. We have heard men saying that we don't like it when some women in our team just come and pat us on our back. Why is it assumed that just because I'm a man, I will be okay with it, but I can't do the same to her, right? We have had conversations wherein men have said that I have been told that, hey, why don't you open the first two buttons of your shirt? I just want to see, as a joke. And see, when we talk about each gender, Malvika, there will be some common ground, and the common ground is the boundary is being crossed, right? But when we talk about how and what it means for boundaries to be crossed for women, we make sure that our conversations are able to include men also in it, cis men also, and trans individuals also in it, so that right now the company may not have any trans person. Okay, you don't have, that's fine. But if ever the person comes in, you know exactly how to behave. You will not need to invest. If you want to invest, please go ahead and invest. Anjana will come again, somebody else will come in again. But you know how to behave. You know how not to offend. Right? So you're not just learning how to behave with women, you please learn how to behave professionally. Right? And that has been the intent. It's been quite difficult to get some companies to understand that, but like I said, it's a philosophy at us. It's a principle for us. We make sure that we put every possible business case out there for companies to understand that why this is important and this is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand like gender identity, even understanding the concepts of it for many cisgendered people, for other sexualities to understand the ranges that are there. Like, I feel like understanding experiences is something, even personally speaking, I'm still learning. Like, I'm trying to
Yeah.
read as much and I'm learning every day. And And one of the things, interestingly, that I came across are these arguments that I've read about the kind of work that's actually done by women and how they're compared to men. Sometimes I've read these quotes where they say that it's biologically not possible for a woman to do a particular job like the man can. And like these biases that are there, I know they're very, very, I've read so many of them, I've lost count. Some of them, some men have actually told me this. And I think I was too young to give an appropriate response back then, but what are these common biases and how do you actually debunk them? Like on a first level basis, how do women actually react to something like this?
Yeah, the most subtle ones and the common ones is whenever we are talking about any business related conversation, right? When we say business related, that means a major decision has to be taken. I agree with Aditya saying biological bullshit. I agree with you. Whenever we talk about any business related growth, number driven, hard hitting decisions, concrete decisions, they don't expect women to be able to take those. That anything that can be measured, somehow women will not be able to do it. That number wise, and this you can see from the childhood, right? Women will be told, a girl child will be told to focus more on arts and creative things, and creativity is not, you can't quantify creativity, right? Creativity is just in abundance, right? So all these creative aspects and beautification and nurturing and softness and kindness and care, even what I hate is care work has come in the companies also, and even here women are given more of the care work. You will mostly see in a company which is all men, the first person to be hired will be generally an HR person, because now she's supposed to manage the team and take care of the team. That's one. Second one is expectation that a woman will not be able to, or this is a pseudo expectation actually, the stereotyping that women will not be able to prioritize work. What I don't understand is that why are we expecting anybody to prioritize work? Work is part of your life. Work is not your life, right? But because of the societal system, when a man walks in for a job interview, it's expected that at home every system is running as a machinery. Somebody is washing clothes, somebody is cooking, somebody is packing their lunch, somebody is cleaning the house. If some festival is there, there's somebody who's making garland, somebody the back end system is taken care of. So the man will be here. He is yours to take and to do whatever that you want that person to do. When it comes to women, the minute she walks into a room, it's expected that her attention is already divided, because you on the other side of the table, you know the reality of the society. You know that she is not fully yours as a resource. You know that her attention will be divided. She will find some ratio in her days to balance it out. She will balance. She is balancing, whereas a male resource is completely yours, because to be very honest, there's so much infrastructure at the back end taking care of it. This particular expectation that your work, your company will become every aspect of you is one of the biggest stereotype, right?
That is a very, very long conversation. Like, personally speaking, all my colleagues also behave as if work-life balance is a dangerous avenue to go to. And many people in the field, especially those in corporate lawyers for that matter, particularly taking an example.
Yeah. Yeah.
This doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know. I've been dealing with the legal fraternity for 10 years now, and I know exactly what you're saying. It's not an easy field to be in, and but legal field का gender stereotypes तो बहुत ही अलग है. मतलब to be a woman and to be a lawyer in this country not only affects your professional life, it also affects your personal life. There was a time I was seeing somebody, and the person told me that I'm not supposed to see you because my auntie said I should not see a girl who is into women rights and all these things. It might be dangerous. So that without a law degree. But coming back to the work related conversation that you were saying, Another stereotype that actually backfires on women is too much empathy to understand from the woman's standpoint. So, for example, if you know that a woman is married, if you know that a woman are making choices on her behalf from an empathetic perspective, oh, she's a woman, don't ask her to stay beyond 6 o'clock. Oh, she's a mother. Don't ask her to be available for any calls on Saturdays because it's a day for her children. Oh, she's a woman. Don't ask her to come on a call after 10 o'clock. This will disturb her personal life. Now, how this backfires is that you're not stopping the work. The work is continuing, except that it's continuing without the woman. Now, how it manifests after some time is that all these important key roles which just cannot wait for, let's say, next morning, or which cannot wait till Monday, or which cannot wait just after lunchtime, right? I have seen men working round the clock. They skip their lunches and they don't take any break and they sleep till by 3 o'clock or something at night. All these things then become key roles because these are the roles which are driving the business. And these are the roles where you will not see women. So, what is the effect then? Don't hire women for key roles because they will not be available. No, they are not available because you're conducting those activities round the clock. Who has told you to conduct activities 24/7? Are you even in a manufacturing plant? There are multiple shifts. They don't ask people to be part of the same shift throughout the day. Yes, the operations cannot afford to stop. You have to keep the machinery running, but the same people are not running the machinery. So when we talk about corporate culture, startup culture, basic regular companies, why are we not able to stop the machinery there? Because everything is so subjective, right? So that's another perception because it is perceived that women will not be available for all these round the clock and firefighting conversations. Let's not hire women for key roles, right? And these are the three one I would say. Uske alawa to yeah, pregnancy of course, woman ka age of course. I have been once told that oh you're not married, good, you know, you get to you can afford to work around the clock, which just if you write it on a piece of paper and you ask that person to explain it, that person will not be able to explain it at all. That how are these multiple things connected, not being married, able to focus on your work, around the clock work, and all those things. The biggest problem, Alvika, here is that nobody is asking or nobody having this dialogue with women. That recently, what we have started just to keep our spirit alive is we started doing this conversation with inclusive leaders. And in one of the conversation, this company's leadership shared this with me that when somebody is sitting in front of us as a candidate, we tell them on our own that we have a 10-year plan for you. Now tell us how the trajectory, what plans you have in your personal life so that we can make adjustment for that. What a beautiful way to one, extract the information that hey, will marriage be on the card? Will kids be there? What all will be there, right? You may want to study further, but whatever it is, we have a 10-year plan for you. Tell us what your personal life plans are and let's club them together. Now, if all companies could start involving the other person in this dialogue instead of assuming, things would be drastically different. And that's where I think most of the posh or sexual harassment cases anyway come in, right? That you're choosing for the other person. You're making decision without even consulting with the other person. And then you're not only thinking it, you're doing even worse. You're vomiting it out in either in terms of your verbals or physical action or behavior. Like, ठीक है आपके दिमाग में कुछ है गड़बड़ वो ठीक है but आप उसको एक्सप्रेस भी कर रहे हो. So that anyway this law is so much crucial to be in the workplace considering the dirt of stereotypes that we carry and then we carry to the workplace also.
Yeah, the patriarchal forces just keep going on and on. And speaking of one of the major debates that have been going on is, as you mentioned, the period leaves. Do you, from your experience in working with all these companies, I'm sure you're already facing trouble talking about inclusive laws, regarding period leaves, do you think like companies, like at least it's something that you can see in the pipeline? Because Zomato has surprised everyone by granting period leaves not only to women but also to trans women. But again, there are many other gender identities that menstruate. See, again, this,
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I feel this is coming. It's a good move, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
But from your experience, do you feel like at least cisgendered women, I mean, we have to start with something. Do you think at least cisgendered women will get period leaves in the coming 5 years at least? Do you think companies are open to it?
I think companies are open to it. But once again, your experience, my experience, and maybe even 10 more organizations like ours, Malvika, if you put them together, is a very, very small segment of the whole pie, that we talk about. And anyway, women like you, me, and anybody who is able to watch what we are doing, right? We have reached a certain stage, we have reached a certain space in our life. The whole fight of period leave is not for women like you and me. The whole fight for period leave is for um, unorganized sector, employed women. It is, and I'm strictly talking to cis women right now, but trans women, I will come on that part as well. That this whole fight of conversation is for them, because in companies like ours, we openly talk about it. In companies like yours also, I think they're already converted. Nobody needs to preach to us, right? There are so many companies out there where they're already manifesting, they're already practicing this culture. The problem is that why do we need a policy? Is when you have a policy, it gives somebody the right to question you if something is not being given to them. The same way, why do we need laws? Yes, of course, the world will be such a beautiful place if all of us knew how to coexist and how to be respectful to the other person and how not to steal and not to lie and not to murder and not to do so many things. But because you cannot transform human overnight, people, you will reach one person at a time, you will reach one company at a time to get the leadership to understand, to have these open conversations that we have. Until then, if a woman is being forced or being threatened, that the whole condition of her employment status is, if she comes to work, no matter what, whether she's unwell, she's bleeding, she's just like gonna faint on the floor, and so many extreme things. No company should be able to do that. And that's why we need policies in place. Because until and unless that happens, we can't even go to the woman and we can educate them that, hey, this is your right. Or, hey, why don't you check with the company on this policy? Right? And in today's world, once again, women like you and me, we're working from home. We have remote teams. I can switch off for a couple of hours and my team won't even know. They will think that I'm in some meeting. They can switch off for a couple of hours and I will not even know, because you are on Slacks and you're on WhatsApps and you're on all these platforms. So you won't even notice that somebody is not there, right? But how about those women who have to be there, who do not have the option to go virtual or go remote? So the fight is for them. And that's the reason why we have to speak more responsibly before accepting or rejecting it, is because we are not the direct or not the at the top of the pyramid stakeholders or beneficiaries here. It's somebody else. So we have to speak more responsibly. We have to speak more consciously that my words today will be captured, mine and yours, and all of us women who are there on Twitter and social media. Our voices will be captured and will be collected together and will be shared with the whoever the authorities are or wherever the discussions are happening. And they will say that, look, so many women are saying they don't need period leave. They're okay with it. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just give them general sick leaves. But that's not that's one, that is not the solution. Second, it is not a solution which is coming from the actual stakeholders who will be needing it, or the majority. Forget about actual. So if 100 women are beneficiaries here and only 5 voices you have captured, and out of those 5 voices, if 3 are saying we don't need it, then those 3 women have actually impacted the lives of these 100 women. right? That's how we need to look at it. Now, coming to the trans women, I completely hate the whole legal text that we have in our country because I think it needs overall revamping. We have to create a core level new definition when we talk or when we say the word woman. We have to somewhere make it inclusive. The definition of woman itself is not inclusive right now. So, our root itself are corrupted. We have to fix that. I hope Nyaya and Ungender can come together and we can do something about it. But we really need to do that because everywhere the conversation about women issues is getting diluted because we are getting okay, let me not say diluted, but it's somehow segregated because when we say women, people understand cis women, right? And but when we say women, we should be talking about trans women also, right? And why wait for separate set of resources and why wait for separate set of whole journey to happen for them to someday reach here and be able to talk about it from their perspective? Why can't we include them only in our conversation, wherein when we talk about periods, we are not only just concerned about what a cis woman is going through, and but we can also talk about what a trans woman has got to say about period leave, right? When there's a period leave in a company, I as a trans woman, I should just be able to say, hey, heck, I'm not coming to office today, and uh, so that's where core level में problem है. So let's fix it.
Yeah, like legally speaking, even when I'm discussing topics, like especially from a legal perspective, when you have segregated classes, like that's even how I've never actually thought about this before. Thank you so much. This is a very, very enlightening experience because this is what being inclusive actually means. And I am really happy, Pallavi, that you came on the chat today. And I know we've gone on quite a bit. And
Oh, I thought this
but
was a 1 hour chat, so I was like comfortably speaking.
oh, no issues. Like I'm because we've had some dedicated people with us also. Let me see. Some of you have written some. Um,
So somebody is
one of
asking why some of the laws are very old and doesn't get updated with respect to these generations. Because
well,
updating, can I answer this? So then you give your perspective. What I have observed, Venkatesh Ramanujam, is in order to update laws, you have to find a rationale, right? In order to find a rationale, it cannot be subjective. So you have to have it data based. So somebody has to collect data. So let's say a very small thing, I would say a hypothetical scenario. If I want to actually say that in the definition of rape, when you talk about women, okay, please expand that definition to include trans women also, right? Now I'll have to first collect data, how many trans women have actually gone through rape and have not found the legal recourse because the definition of rape does not include this particular, gender segment. Where's the data available? Okay, you will have to scan through NCRB, but I don't think NCRB has this because it's only till recently that we started collecting or we recognize the existence officially. So there's no data. So then you will have to do a lot of ground level research and study. You will have to go and dig into legal, the judgments which were filed around the same cause, and you'll have to put it all together. You'll have to make a case out of it, and then you will have to go and file petition around it, right? Nyaya, please educate further if I have missed any step. But this is how tedious it is, and I won't say that people are not working on it. I mean, organizations like Nyaya is working on it, Ungender is working on it. There's so many other amazing organizations who are focused on fixing things like updating the laws.
yeah, and Ramanujam, to answer this question, practically speaking, first of all, it's not an easy process like Pallavi mentioned, but it's very time consuming and people are very lazy, and that's the honest fact. Consultations with civil society organizations and NGOs, you'll have everyone ready, but there has to be some sort of government will also to move things forward, which is one of the institutional hurdles that are there.
Yeah.
But we can have a longer discussion on this sometime later.
Then
But
file a PIL. I mean, go for a PIL with a very thorough data-driven and enough case basis for yourself. Ramanujan, happy to talk on it separately. Both, I think, Malvika and I will be very happy to go about it, because uh, I actually truly believe a lot in the whole PIL, concept. I think it's a wonderful one, and more of us should benefit from it, but only after a thorough ground level study, not just on our whims and fancies, because you are, at the end of the day, for whatever is happening currently, approaching the Supreme Court. I'll say it
Yeah.
with a pinch of salt right now.
And statistically speaking, also, like backing Pallavi's point, a lot of PILs are dismissed on the go. And that makes it very difficult, like, to actually fight it again and again. I mean, you really need to have a lot of data driven
Yeah.
petitions to actually back you up. So, yeah.
That's why we introduced Conduct, Malvika, that, let's bring data, at least for the company's front, but then we will do it for other aspects also. I think when it comes
Hmm.
to gender from an inclusive angle, data is completely missing. Look at NCRB, we don't have data on sexual harassment at workplace cases. This is NCRB, for God's sake. So,
And they do release data a little late, I would say.
अरे भाई
Like,
लेट ही करो, पर मुझे बताओ तो, ये कैटेगरी तो डाल दो।
yeah.
सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट एट वर्कप्लेस का कैटेगरी तो डाल दो आप, क्योंकि दैट विल
Hmm.
पुश द अदर authorities like district officers to submit the annual compliance report to the state department. The state department will then submit it to the central ministry. आप डेटा एटलीस्ट एक कैटेगरी तो क्रिएट करो, अभी तो वो कैटेगरी ही नहीं है। सो
Yeah.
एनसीआरबी का आप अगर डेटा निकाल के देखोगे तो उसमें वर्कप्लेस सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट एज अ क्राइम डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट इन द कैटेगरीज. So these are small tweaks that will make a huge difference. We don't always have to pick the biggest of the hurdle out there, but ये छोटे मोटे रॉक्स भी हिला देंगे ना, तो सिस्टम के ऊपर बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा.
That's true. Even with respect to gendered crimes, for that matter, like
Yeah, yeah.
there is on that at all. It's just lived experiences due to organizations like similar to ours that are working on it that we also get to know about it. So
Yeah.
anyway, Pallavi, thank you again. This has been a wonderful session, and like we really hope to call you again for another discussion. Maybe like we can narrow down on a subject and have a lot of our users ask questions, because when it especially comes to problems in sexual harassment, that's where we also get a lot of questions legally. So we can definitely like come back and have another session
Let
together.
us do that. Let us do that, because I really thoroughly enjoyed this, Malvika, and I think these are the conversations we need to have more and more. And yes, next time we can just open it for, what is it that people want to ask, and we can just answer them. And there are so many questions which have been left unanswered. I'm sure you will have a copy of it. So, is there any way that we can answer them some other place?
Let me see. Okay, I got a question. Do you think it's more of a psychological? Actually, some of these are in context of some of the points that we mentioned, so it may seem very random. Don't you think it's more of a psychological issue than a law rights issue? Still, no importance given on this area, especially from a young age.
Yeah, that's a
Sorry, this
different
is
one. Yeah. I think somebody has, sometimes people at higher post, they
sometimes.
scrape the evidence as well. How to deal with
Yeah.
such a situation. Huh, that happens all the time. It's not just scraping the evidence. People will actually not only not collect the evidences properly only, but
Hmm.
that just takes us back to square one. That if you as a woman do not know, and we tell it to men also, Malvika, a lot of men have come to us asking that, was my investigation done in the right way? Be it
Hmm.
the complainant, be it the respondent, either way, when it comes to the POSH Act, everything lies in the documentation. And
Hmm.
if somebody says that our company did not maintain any documentation, I to say best, because you don't even have to prove anything that they did not treat you right. The very fact that they don't have any documentation,
Yeah.
they have nothing to provide in the court of law. All you have to do is file an appeal in the higher court of law. The court will ask for the case file. The company will say, we don't have any case file. That's it. That's
It.
it. I mean, your fight is no longer about whether sexual harassment happened or not. Your fight is now that the investigation was not done properly. Now it is
Hmm.
back to the company not only to pay for those consequences, but also now at the direction of the court, start the investigation all over again in the due proper manner, right? So an absence of documentation, best. The company has
Right.
nothing to safeguard themselves against. So yeah, that's what I will say. But sure, I know our time is up. Thanks,
Yeah.
Malvika, for having me and Ungender here. Stay ungender and remember that all genders deserve dignity.
That is a very good note to end this conversation. Pallavi, thank you again for joining us. And we'll definitely look at a Q&A session. We've had some comments saying that people have want to